Hey, I'm James. Welcome to Alternate Sides, a podcast about movies, parking, and a 25-year friendship. This is episode 3. Today we're talking about Michelangelo Antonioni's 1975 movie, The Passenger, starring an in his prime Jack Nicholson and Maria Schneider. It's a kind of existentialist thriller about international spies, arms dealers, and a stolen identity. Or is Antonioni just trying to pull a fast one on us? Along the way, we also talk about Candy Crush, George Plimpton, and everybody's favorite winter weather condition. Here we go. Whoa!
Hello.
Yeah, you all right, mate?
Yeah, I'm in the Subaru.
Where are we today?
Very close to where we were last time, actually. It's not a very exciting story, just up the road. Although I will say, I don't know what it's like in Philly, but we're having what's called a wintry mix. I kept telling Wilder all the way to school, this is a wintry mix. And he said, will you just stop saying wintry mix, please?
I don't think I heard, I feel like wintry mix is a recent coinage.
That's what he said. He said, they make stuff up because they get bored.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah.
It's wintry mix, Emmanuel.
Wilder said to me, though, it doesn't matter what anything is because it's all made up anyway. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we've just made everything up. So it really doesn't matter. You say red. Well, what is red? You just made that up.
He's not wrong. What is he, 10 now?
10. I was like, we could get into this. Yeah.
I'm going to give you what in the business they call a teaser and say that the movies from 1976 that I haven't seen are going to really make you angry. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well, I think also now we're getting into movies that like I at least remember coming out, which I think makes a big difference. That like, The Passenger or The Last Detail are kind of before my time, but like, I remember when Star Wars came out or when whatever came.
Margie watched some of The Passenger with me, and she was like, this is quite an obscure movie. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. I think he'd watched most of the 75 movies by accident.
Well, there were others. It's true that I had watched a lot of the great 75 movies. I have a bit of follow-up from our last conversation.
Oh, I love a bit of follow-up.
My dear twin sister, Laurie, reminded me that she had never seen the early 80s Flash Gordon movie that Queen did the soundtrack for, but she did, as a young girl, see Flesh Gordon.
Well, that's a classic.
Is it? Have you seen that? Of course, you've seen all the movies. Have you seen Flesh Gordon?
I've seen pieces of Flesh Gordon. I haven't
just the best pieces, I'm sure.
I don't know. Yeah. It's one of those things. I think there was like a VHS going around at some point.
Probably just one VHS, it's like fruitcakes. There's only actually one that gets passed around from person to person. Yeah, so Flesh Gordon, which is like a 1974 sex comedy film, I guess, that has, shall we say, explicit scenes in it, which I think was maybe my sister's first exposure to human sexuality. I think we were in 4th grade or something, and she went over to our classmate's house. And I guess he had this on, I think he actually had Betamax.
Ooh.
True. Nice. So Flesh Gordon on Betamax. And this was the thing. And I think my parents found out, maybe we were a little older than 4th grade, but it was an iconic moment in the family lore because both of my sisters, when I told them about Flash Gordon, remembered Flesh Gordon,
which is probably the more durable of the titles.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to say, I recently received the new revised update of the DSM-5, and there's a new diagnosis in there: prolonged grief disorder. So that kind of goes back to what we were talking before. Yeah, and I think it's basically like if you're still ashes and sackcloth after a year.
Right. If you haven't gotten over it, that's what they mean.
Yeah, if you haven't remarried and moved to Boca.
Just get over it. Is there a solution for it? Do they say you should tell the patient it's probably time?
No, the DSM is strictly diagnostic. They don't give any kind of treatment recommendations. But I'm sure that in Sam Neve's book of caring psychotherapy, it would say, just get on with it.
Don't you think it's enough now? I think that would be the...
Well, this touches on another thing, which is this idea of you being dismissive and thinking that people are wrong about their actual feelings and opinions.
I don't think they're wrong. What is the old Jean Renoir line? If we talk about movies, the terrible things is that everyone has their reasons. Tout le monde a ses raisons. So, like, I get it. I'm okay with it. I just think a lot of times, I guess I find it difficult sometimes the way other people are in the world, and I know for a fact that people find the way I am in the world difficult.
Oh, yes. I know that for a fact as well.
But
all right, The Passenger, 1975. Michelangelo Antonioni, Jack Nicholson, and what's her name?
Maria Schneider.
Maria Schneider. So a quick recap. You tell me if I've got it right. Nicholson is an Anglo-American journalist. He's in, I think it's Chad. He's somewhere in Saharan Africa, trying to track down these rebels to do a documentary film, and he's lost and frustrated. And he's in a very small hotel in the middle of nowhere, where he kind of casually makes the acquaintance of this other Englishman, who very early in the movie dies of a heart attack. And Nicholson then decides, for reasons we never really find, I mean, we do in a kind of philosophical way, but there's no real practical reason why he does this, but he switches identities. He decides he's going to become Mr. Robertson, and this body is now going to be David Locke. So he assumes his identity, but then quickly, in classic sort of noir thriller fashion, realizes that Robertson was in deep with some unsavory characters.
He was an arms dealer.
Then most of the movie is, again, a kind of a road movie. It's not really a thriller. I mean, there are elements where, like, the heavies, you know, they're coming, they're tailing the woman. There's a kind of mystery or investigative element. But mostly it is a very sort of philosophical. There's probably 10 lines of dialogue in the first hour of the movie, I feel like.
Have you seen other Antonioni movies? Have you seen Blow Up?
I've seen Blow Up, yeah. I have not seen Red Desert. Is that him?
Yeah, Red Desert.
Or Zabriskie Point, music by Pink Floyd.
That was his big failure, his big commercial flop. La Ventura, I guess, is the one.
I have not seen that.
The Italian ones are probably the best ones. La Ventura, La Notte, and L'Eclisse. I think those are like some sort of a trilogy. He's the master of alienation, right? Antonioni. That's his jam. Alienation, existential angst, and for that reason, as I was watching, I was thinking, of the great, like, European masters, Fellini, Bergman, Godard, etc. I think that he's aging less well, because it feels like that is a very mid-20th century thing, this idea of existentialism and alienation.
Right. Uh-huh.
And, like, it was very much on everyone's mind in the 60s, 70s. And now people are like Bergman, who was all about emotional rawness and human interaction. That seems to endure in a way that this theme doesn't quite as much.
You almost could draw a line from the end of the war, of World War II, and those, Camus and those kind of concerns into this. It's an interesting lens. But what do you think the movie is about? I think there's the one of the questions hanging over the movie, which is a question you and I have debated many times, is can people really change or not?
Yes, but he's not. He's trying to change. He's trying to trick the system. He's trying to game the system, right? So he's not. He's hoping that if he turns into Robertson, then all his problems will go away. And of course they don't, because he's still what does he say? The old me is hungry. The old me is the only the old me is the only me I ever actually know. The rest is nonsense. So yeah, I think you're right. He comes to the conclusion that that it's futile, that you can't change.
Well, he says so in the beginning. He says, we remain the same. We translate every situation and every experience like into the same old codes.
Right. Yeah. It's the lens that we see everything through. That's right. I do think that's true. I think that I only kept a diary 1 year when I was like 15, when I was like 25, at some point, I looked back at it and I was like, huh, I'm still the exact same twat that I was at 15. Like nothing had changed. I felt completely identical, like, and familiar.
Is that reassuring or is that disturbing? Because I remember, like, when my daughter was born, I had never been a dad before, and she was who she was. And then the son was born less than 2 years later, totally different person.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know why that should be surprising, but it's like Molly and I are the same people. We're kind of raising him the same way, same house or whatever.
Yeah, that's been to me the biggest lesson of being a dad, is that they come out who they are in ways that are impossibly complicated, like that they just come out with such distinct, definitive, like, traits, characteristics. It's just amazing.
Another line that struck me in the movie was, again, that there's the flashback that we see that's amazingly well constructed, where while Nicholson has the guy's passport and is like gingerly with the razor blade cutting out the photos and swapping them, we have this flashback where we're on Nicholson, and then we pan over, and by the time we get to the window, it's in the same shot.
Yeah.
There he is again, but in an earlier
Yeah.
scene with the guy, anyway, Robertson, and they're talking, and Nicholson is expressing his bewilderment, I guess, confusion, frustration with not being able to track down these rebels. And Robertson says, "You work with words and images, fragile things. I come with merchandise, concrete things. They understand me straight away."
I do. That shot is amazing. I love it when, in movies, when people mess with time within the shot. Like, that's something that's very, I like that.
Well, you did that masterfully, if I may say so, in your film First Person Singular, which was a similar thing where we're holding on the character Daryl, and it's a nighttime shot, right? And then we slowly pan across the room, and by the time we get to the window, it's daylight, and he's standing at the window the next morning. Unbroken shot. Yeah.
That reminds me, actually. So when this movie came on, like, one of the first names that you see on the thing, the guy who wrote it, is, I think, Mark Peplow.
Mm-hmm.
So this is funny because the movie you're talking about, First Person Singular, we played it in a festival in Marrakesh, where my uncle lives. And so I was there for this festival, and Mark Peplow was there. And he saw this movie.
Hold on. So you're in Marrakesh premiering a movie you made.
Yeah.
And the screenwriter of The Passenger is also there.
Is there. And he watched the thing. And afterwards we hung out and we were talking about this exact thing, about, like, how, you like moving through time in a shot. And he was like, yeah, I was always really into that idea. And it's like, and we were saying how it felt like movies did that more, they played with that idea more back then.
Yeah.
And this guy, turns out he's a lovely guy. He's a British guy, very, very unassuming, like, just like you'd think he was like a tax guy. Like, he was just like a real, like, sweet, just not like glamorous in any way. And it turns out, I think he was, I don't know if he's still around, what the story is. He was the brother-in-law of Bertolucci.
Wow.
His wife was Bertolucci's sister, and I think he wrote the film adaptation of Sheltering Sky and some other things. But he'd gotten his break with The Passenger, and I think originally he was supposed to direct The Passenger. And then Antonioni got involved, and obviously he was fancier, so they went with Michelangelo instead of Mark, which could have been a very different movie, I guess. But I hadn't thought about that until. And like, these things happen in festivals. You kind of meet these people, everyone's like mates, and then everyone goes back to their lives, and you never hear from them again. So I've no idea what he's up to now. But this was whenever it was, 10, 15 years ago.
So the man who wrote The Passenger watched a movie that you made featuring music by James Lovino, I should add.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wait, but speaking of unbroken shots in which a time lapse happens, we have that in one of our scripts, one of our many unproduced scripts that we've written.
That's right. Which
after a man, spoiler alert, smothers his brother to death.
Yeah, I love that kind of thing, and it predicts the ending of the movie as well, which is actually, of all the things, it's probably one of the most famous shots. I mean, I don't know about in movies, but it is. I mean, kind of. It well at the time. I think it was like
I'm surprised I'd never
it's,
seen that before. It's like 7 minutes long of an
it's
unbroken shot
amazing.
that starts behind this like bars against a window, and then somehow, which at the time with a camera must have been crazy, moves apparently through the bars and then it goes outside and then turns around and shows you the kind of reverse of the thing. And it's interesting that you don't see Jack Nicholson. I mean, here's another spoiler alert, but you don't see his fate at the end is totally off camera. You go out there and then when you come back, the deed is done.
But you know, because you see the guys coming. You see the guys. You see Maria Schneider walking around. You see it's all going to happen here.
But I don't think you could get away with that now. This is another one of our ongoing, like, how would this be different today? Like, I don't think that today's producers would let you get away with not showing the culmination of your main character's storyline on camera. But like having the scene where it happens, but also not showing it.
I don't know that because they show it. They just don't show you the actual murder.
Yeah, spoiler.
I think you could get away with it.
I also thought if you were doing it today, you'd have to have more, thrills. You'd have to have more of a scene where the bad guys.
Well, so this is what I was saying earlier. Like this to me, I'm torn about this. Like, this is one of the ways in which like intellectual, like art house movies sometimes rub people the wrong way. And I do think this is kind of a trope, right? Where you take the trappings of the let's say switched identity thriller, right? This is, look, I've switched identity with the dead man, and all of a sudden the dead man's an arms dealer. And now I'm going to the airport and looking up in the lockbox, and then the guys are coming after me. Fantastic stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we're leaning in going, woo, juicy. This is I didn't expect this, Mr. Antonioni. Please, this is quite exciting. But of course, he's not going to really follow through. He's not going to give you the Jason Bourne resolution, right? The big showdowns, the big switch. He's not even going to do the Hitchcock version. He's going to do the it doesn't really matter, but like he's going to continue to go to places, but now no one's going to show up. Basically, that's kind of what happens. So is that frustrating?
But this does remind me of Cormac McCarthy's new book, which is also called The Passenger. Starts with the trappings of a really interesting, juicy mystery, and then basically just like ignores it for the rest of the book, Sets up this great puzzle. And then also, like, the Antonioni spends its time traveling out of the way, like hotels or like lonely beaches. And
is this satisfying or is this frustrating?
Well, I'm reading The Passenger for the second time, and in the first time I read it, it was frustrating, but it's also because, like, McCarthy's The Road is so stark in its like father and son trying to get to the ocean. That's the whole book. And so it's also like I was a bit spoiled by having read a blurb about the new book, which is like when a salvage diver goes down to recover a plane and finds that the black box and one of the passengers are inexplicably missing. It sets off, whatever. And I was like, okay. And then there's the first chapter where he goes down into the plane and there's somebody missing, whatever. And then there's this kind of thread of like federal goons or other like mysterious characters in suits who come and question him and like ransack his room.
If you read the log line of The Passenger, it would be equally like, ooh, wow.
Yeah.
The guy switches identities with a man who turns out to be an arms dealer.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun. And then you watch The Passenger and you're like, it's not quite what I expected, guys. Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Jack Nicholson in this year's hottest thriller. Yeah.
Exactly.
Is this also in The Erasers? Similar thing?
Oh yeah, I do think like Robrier is the same kind of deal. The new novel, whatever, that's like this thing of take a I guess even then it was like a hackneyed form, and put some 20th century philosophical existential spin on it. I like it. I enjoy watching it. But I also I wonder sometimes the little man in my stomach sometimes wonders if you're cheating.
Wait, you mean cheating because you're like,
You're dangling the promise of something that you're not really going to deliver. And are you only dangling it so that I'll watch?
right. What I liked about it is like, you don't really need to know the Nicholson character's backstory or whatever else. You're 10 minutes
Yeah.
in the movie, you see that
Oh
he's
yeah,
in the
yeah.
desert lost. Then you see that he discovers this guy dead in the hotel room. It's all done silently. That's actually very, I mean, well done visually.
That's great. Yeah.
And then he decides to switch identities. And you never really, like I said earlier, like there's no real reason for him to switch identities. He doesn't have a lot of like debts or, anything else, but he's just a
He
guy
says
who's,
everything ran out. That's what he
mm,
says. Everything ran out. My wife ran out. My job ran out. My stories ran. He was done. He's fed up. I mean, which
mm,
who among
mm,
us can't relate to that? He's fed up. It's funny. I used to get really frustrated when I was younger, and I watched like David Lynch movies.
mm,
I would get frustrated that Lynch would do a similar thing, and over time, I've come to change. I've changed my mind. I think that Lynch is brilliant, and I mean, I thought he was brilliant then, but I'm much more satisfied by the non-conforming of the thing.
mm,
Like he sets
mm,
up puzzles which are seemingly impossible, but once you kind of lock into Lynch's world being all psychological
mm.
and all like
Mental.
mental breakdowns,
Yeah.
then it all comes to life in a different way.
Yeah, I feel the same way, specifically about Lynch too. That I think when I watched those movies in my 20s, that I was like expecting something that it wasn't giving in terms of
Yeah.
like a traditional, even though I know like Blue Velvet, okay, weird, the man in the yellow suit who's dead, but just
Yeah.
like standing in the room and like strange
Yeah.
things like that, and the Dennis Hopper, like strange and surreal elements, but some fundamental level. Like I bet if I watched Lost Highway again, which I haven't seen since it came out, I would like it a lot more
Yeah.
because there too, I felt like he was kind of like pulling a fast one. Like, what, you set up this whole mystery with Bill Pullman and this murder,
Exactly. He
and then
doesn't
suddenly we're
deliver.
with Balthazar Getty and some totally different. But then when you hear him explain it, which is basically this, it's sort of about how far the mind is willing to go to protect itself from knowledge that's too painful or distressing.
Yeah. I think that's what I want in The Passenger is not the backstory. It's
Mm,
the story. It's the character story.
mm,
I want something to happen to that person. I want them to be bent out of shape in some way.
mm-hmm,
It just feels like he does this and then he's on the run, and he seems a bit hapless. He doesn't quite know why he's done it or what he's
mm.
running from or what. So it's a bit frustrating. Maybe
Well,
that's what
there's
it
a
is.
moment where he's going to like chuck it all in and he's going to become what does he say, like a waiter in Tangiers or something or other. But then she convinces him, the Maria Schneider character convinces him to
Yeah, to
go ahead
keep
and keep
going.
this other appointment that the Robertson gun running character had in Barcelona or whatever. And that would be a good character moment of watching him, which wouldn't have to be much. It could be all in the eyes, of course. But I feel like they don't really sell that moment of him deciding finally to go ahead with it.
It's hard for me. I don't really buy the whole Maria Schneider thing as
Hmm.
well. I don't. She seems a bit convenient. She's there in
I thought so
London.
too. And I also think that nowadays, the early 20s girl just going on the run with the late 30s guy after a chance meeting in the church is a
Little dodgy.
little dodgy.
Yeah.
So no traffic warden, no street sweeper yet, huh?
I think the traffic warden went by. He gave a ticket to the one
I had a
behind
thought about
the
the
thing.
alternate side parking thing, and I'm gonna put it to you.
Oh, we're going to propose something to the mayor.
No, I think that you're doing it wrong. I think that
Could
I
be.
think that you should do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to move your car so the street can be cleaned. And I think if everyone just did what they were supposed to do,
Well, if
the
everyone
streets
did,
would
I
be
would.
cleaner. Yeah.
If everyone did, I would. But no one does, so I'm not going to lose my spot.
No one does because of this exact thing. This is why
Mm.
we have no society or sense of.
I would also say that the the whole thing is nonsense. You don't need the street sweeper. How does everyone else do it?
Well, there are no street sweepers in Philadelphia. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. How does
yeah.
everyone do it? Like, no, you don't need a street sweeper. Especially you don't need one to go down the middle of every block and just tidy it up.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like Dean and Vanderbilt also is like a hotbed of refuse and littering.
Chock-a-block over here. I don't know.
No, but I must say, I do have to say that I think that
I must insist
that you have a civic duty to move your car and you're not moving it.
I would agree with you. Oh, there he goes, right on cue. Hello.
The street sweeper, not even slowing down, just blowing right down the middle of the street.
He's gone. In fact, there's cars double parked, so he's having to maneuver. He's having to maneuver in the street. He can't even get to the side. It's fantastic. Can we talk for a minute about, and I think this speaks to the film maybe not having aged as well, how hard it was to see this movie?
Yes.
Where did you watch it?
I watched it on the Internet Archive.
Oh.
Yeah, archive.org, which is a place where they have like, I don't know, it's sort of this weird catch-all.
Does that mean you watched it on a computer or you watched it on your TV?
Yeah, I watched it on my laptop.
Oh man, I hate that.
Why? Should I watch it on my phone?
God, so annoying.
Like him or not, Antonioni is one of the, I don't know, 15 important European directors of the 60s and 70s. Let's just say.
Oh, for sure. I would put him in the top 10.
This is one of his most well-known movies, featuring a Hollywood icon, and according to Wikipedia, as we established last week, one of the greatest actors of all time. Not on Apple, not on Amazon, not on Netflix.
So weird. Not on Criterion.
No Criterion, no HBO Max, nothing. As far as I could tell, it's on Tubi, whatever that is.
That's what I did.
And Voodoo, whatever that is. But then luckily I found it on the Internet Archive, which is but so what happened for you?
I did the same thing you probably did, looked it up, went, well, I don't understand. I'm sure, and I was like, no, I don't believe it. I'm sure it's on Amazon. So I went through the Apple TV, searched for the movie, and it said, you can only watch this movie on Tubi. So I was like, all right, well, what is that? And it said...
You decided you had to decide whether to watch it on Tubi or not Tubi.
Terrible.
Did you have to sign up for 3 months free or something like that?
No. So it's a free service. But of course, you give away who you are and you whatever. It's free. But of course, now, guess why it's free? Because there's fucking ads. So now you're like this. I watched The Passenger, interrupted every 10 to 12 minutes by the same 30-second ad for like a Candy Crush solitaire game, which, as you know, is the thing that I find like is the biggest.
Yes, people playing Candy Crush on the subway really winds you up.
It's the surest sign of the apocalypse to me that we have as a species, we have given up. Every time I see people playing that stupid thing I just want to smack the phone out of their hands and go, do you know what you're doing? Like, what are you doing?
Why you would prefer everyone to be reading Proust on the subway, would you?
No, I'd rather everyone would just sitting there. Just sit there. I feel like you've joined in this mind-numbing conspiracy to rot your own brain. It's so pernicious, this fucking thing. Moving digital fruit around a screen. I mean, what on earth could be the purpose of this?
Moving digital fruit, because we know what it does. It's a dopamine trigger. It gives you that pleasurable feeling.
Oh my god, it makes me so angry. So every 12 minutes in the middle of a movie about fucking alienation, I have to watch. At the end of a long day, when you want to unwind, play solitaire now with extra characters. Woohoo! It's like, I want to fucking die.
This is your privilege talking. You don't have the kind of job that all you want after 10 hours in the salt mines is a little bit of mindless fun.
It's a little bit of Candy Crush. It's not the guys in the salt mines playing Candy Crush. No, I don't believe that for a second. I don't think it's privilege. Someone has just erected, if I may use that word,
Please don't.
an enormous ladder, right? They put it against the side of this building, and it's gone. There's like a 3-story building, and he's just put the ladder on it. This is a very long way up, and he's just going up.
How high up is the ladder going?
I mean, ridiculously high. It's like one of those that's 3 bits.
Uh-huh.
Put it this way, it's bending.
He's going up to like the 3rd floor?
He's on the roof. He's going up to the roof. This is a ladder that like Buster Keaton would use.
That's terrible. And no one is at the bottom spotting him or anything?
No one is at the bottom, and no one is at the top. You're not gonna get on the roof, mate. He's getting on the roof, the sloped roof. No, this is such a bad idea. Oh, the woman's come out of the house to tell him it's about it. Oh my God, he's reaching. He's gonna die.
Don't say such things.
Oh my God, that's so risky what he just did. Fucking hell.
How's he going to get down? That's going to be the terrible part.
Yeah, he'll never get down. Because it's like the ladder, and then there's a slope part, and he reached past the ladder, and he grabbed, and he hoisted himself over. I mean, he really was very close to dying. One slip, and it's also, I told you, it's a wintry mix out here. It's not dry. It's not dry.
Yeah, it's one slippery footfall from disaster. This reminds me of a story that George Plimpton once told me. You know, George Plimpton, my erstwhile boss, was as well as being the editor of the Paris Review, was the unofficial fireworks commissioner of New York City for many years. And he told a story about doing fireworks for, was it the Millennium maybe? And he somehow is part of this crew, also very George Plimpton, that goes up to the top of the Brooklyn Bridge, like to the top of the stone, like the suspension things go up, and you're at the very tippy top. And he said climbing up with whoever it is, Grucci, and they're going up, and it's, the dusk is falling, and maybe it's a bit windy. Of course, Plimpton would tell the story amazingly. And he gets to the top, and he kind of pulls himself up onto the flat stone platform at the very top of one of the things. And he sees that someone has written down into the stone, like carved it or somehow written down the words, "You've come a long way, baby. Now let's see you fly."
Oh God.
Anyway, where's our friend now? Is he up on the roof still?
Well, he's on the roof, but I think he's realizing the same thing that you did.
It's like a cat in a tree. You're gonna have to call the fire department.
Exactly. Oh God, he's coming down. He's coming down. He's doing it. Oh God, this is so risky.
I can't listen to this. Can we call me back when he's either dead or safely, when he's on the ground, one way or the other?
He did it. He got back on the ladder. I mean, if I tried to do what he just did, I'd 100% be dead.
Yeah, I don't like this at all. I feel like also you should be out there exhorting him or holding a ladder.
No, the woman came out of the house and said, "Why are you doing it like that?" And he went, "No, don't worry about it." I mean, he's made it down. No gloves. No, not even wearing a coat.
In a wintry mix. And so I ask you, Sam Neve, if he wants to go and put his feet up and play a bit of Candy Crush right now, who are we to judge him?
I guarantee you he's not playing fucking Candy Crush.
All right, are you ready for me to lay on some 1976 movies for you?
Yeah, go on then.
I'm just gonna lay the big one down to start with. Okay. This is embarrassing as a Philadelphia person. Rocky. Hello? Hello?
How on earth have you gone your whole life without seeing Rocky?
I don't know.
It's so weird. Isn't your mom in Rocky?
My mom's in Rocky 5.
The best of the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck? How have you not seen Rocky? Okay, Rocky.
I don't know how I haven't seen it, and it is, as somebody born and raised in Philadelphia, also
it's just like, it's hard. It's like yeah.
Like I would have had to go out of my way to avoid it.
Definitely. Definitely.
I'm like the man who never heard of Frank Sinatra.
Exactly. I don't know how you've done it.
All right, here's another one. A Star is Born.
Oh, God.
Christopherson Streisand, right? That's a musical, right?
I've not seen it. So
does it count as a musical? I don't know. Okay.
I haven't seen any of the stars, the Judy Garland or the Lady Gaga.
Yeah, I'm not terribly interested in that, I have to say. Okay, here's the next one. In the realm of the senses.
Ooh.
I think that one is, from what I gather, is a little bit racy.
Quite sexy. At one point, I believe an egg comes out of a woman's vagina.
Is it a hard-boiled egg or a raw egg?
I think I don't remember. I just remember thinking, ooh.
Okay, I might give that a miss.
It's very sensual. You'd love it.
All right, here's another one. Carrie.
Carrie, Brian De Palma.
It's another one I have like a vague, early memories of like her being covered in blood and whatever at the prom or whatever it is, the big dance.
Pig's Blood. I'm surprised you haven't seen that, but I guess that makes more sense. You're not a horror kind of guy.
The Outlaw Josie Wales.
That's a great movie. Very good movie.
The Man Who Fell to Earth.
Oh, another Nick Rogue movie.
I mean, I think it kind of has to be Rocky, right?
Yeah, there's no question. It's hilarious that you've never seen Rocky.
Good luck. It's now 10 o'clock, so you can get out of your car.
Oh, yeah, lovely. Sweet freedom till Friday.
See you next week.
All right, cheers.
Bye. And that's that. Next week, we talk about John Avildsen's 1976 movie, Rocky. It's a classic, of course. It's something I should have seen a long time ago. It's going to be a good episode. I was going to say it's going to be a knockout, but I think Sam would get mad at me and make me take that out. So I'm not saying that. Bye for now.